Okay, so we are still in part 1b. Still in part 1. This time, we're going to talk about the monthly expenses. Now, remember, all these highlighted texts are directions. So after you read the direction, you can delete it. It's not needed in your submission, but it's up to you. You can delete it now, or you can delete it later when you do your final submission. But as I've always suggested to previous students and to all the other students, if you can work clean, so as soon as you're done with it, you can delete it. Okay, so for the first direction, calculate your monthly expenses for each category below and fill in table 2 monthly expenses. You can share real numbers or you can create a hypothetical experience with realistic estimates. So that's the direction. We can create realistic or we can create hypothetical. Now for table 2, we have to fill in each category with the monthly amount that you would like to budget. If you do not need a subcategory, you can delete it or you can just put a 0 in your budget. Feel free to add subcategories if you need to. If the category is on an as-need basis, budget a certain monthly amount to go towards that category. For example, I don't get an oil exchange each month, but I might want to budget $30 each month, so I have money for when I need an oil change. Okay, so that's the direction. We can erase it or you can keep it for now. So let's go to the actual table. Now this is the table. If you notice, you have the category for your budget here on the left, and you have the category details, the total budgeted amount, and the percent of total take-home pay. Now listen to this. This should be rounded to the nearest whole percent. And you will need to show your work. Okay, so this is your monthly expenses. Now, if you scroll down, below all these categories, you're going to see a note that says, total budgeted amount column should add to your entire monthly net take-home pay. Remainder of monthly net take-home pay should be calculated into the emergency fund category. So what it's saying is, here at the very end of the table, under the total column, this dollar amount here should be equal to your take-home pay. Okay, so your clean salary every month. And you can scroll up because we already calculated that earlier, remember? In part 1a, so let's scroll up. Let me get rid of this. So I'm going to scroll up. Just remember table 1. We are done solving for the monthly net take-home pay. So this, whatever is your answer here, should be the number that you need to write under the total column in table 2. So let me go back again. So let me change this one. I'm going to copy and paste this because this is the monthly net salary. So copy, and I'm going to paste that at the very bottom. Because this is your salary every month, this should be what you're going to budget. And you're going to budget this among all the categories here. You have housing, which is considered under the need category. Food, how much of your salary goes to food? And how much of your salary goes to insurance? So for example purposes, I'm going to say that my housing here on the first row, so let's just say 18% of my salary goes into housing. So let me Let me clean this up. It has to look neat. So 18%. How much is that? So to show the work, let me scroll back down. This is the salary. We're going to take 18% of our salary and we have to show. So that amount times 18% in decimal is 0.18. And we're going to use our calculator. How much is that? So we do 3,589.34 times 0.18. Remember, we have to round it to the nearest cent. So 646.08. 646.08. Don't forget the dollars. Okay. Now, it looks like my number here, this text here, is not Times New Roman. So I want to go back to the correct format, which is a Times New Roman 12. Oops. Let me highlight it again because it did not change. Let's see. Times New Roman 12 and Times New Roman. Okay, so I guess it changed, but it's not big enough. So for this table, in order to look nice, in order for the table to look pretty, we can make the numbers smaller so that it will fit nicely in here. So for your work, for the 18%, we've shown that we calculated 18% of our net salary, and that is equal to 646.08. Now, we're going to put this answer. We copy this. I like to use Control-C. And then I'll put my answer here. So that's the amount. There you go. So your answer here, let me put the colon. So your answer should be here. Now, the total budget amount for housing. Okay. Then, after you're done here, you have to budget this here in this row. Okay? So how much of that 646.08 goes into rent or mortgage payment? So say you pay, let's say 400, okay? Or 500. Let's just do 500. So let me change my cursor here. So here I'm gonna do 500 a month. And then property taxes, I'm gonna say it's 100. And for repairs, I'm gonna do, so this is already 600. Repairs, I save every month. For repairs, I save 46.08. You can do that. Just as long as when you add here, it has to be equal to this amount because that is your budget for the month, right? And another reminder on this part, if you scroll down, let me go back to my cursor. So if we scroll down here, remember these percentages here on the right column. This column here, the total percentage has to be 100% because you're using all your monthly net pay, right? So the total amount here or the total percentage should be 100%. And you have to write it neatly. So let me erase that. And I'm going to use my cursor here. You can put your cursor over here and use backspace so you can type 100%. Okay? So you have to think and budget your salary. And if there are categories that you're not using, say for example, for the transportation, let's look at here. Oops. Let me circle that better. For this transportation, you are not riding in a bus. So you're not paying anything for a bus fare. So this would be 0 over here. So if you're not using the category, you can write 0, or as the instruction earlier said, you can delete this. So let me go back to the cursor and I can actually delete this part here, the bus fares. Okay? And if you make a mistake, don't worry. You can always use this undo button. So for now, I'm gonna bring back that bus fares. I'm gonna use put it back. So undo. It should be back here, bus fares. Okay, so if you don't want to delete it, just add 0. That will tell me and the people that's gonna read your portfolio project later that you're not spending anything on that particular category. Now remember, it has to be 100%. So later when everything is filled in, you have to recalculate all your percent here. Now remember, percent is rounded to the nearest whole number. No decimals for percent. Okay, so this is how you do table 2 and yes, the table 2 for monthly expenses. So once you're done with your table, you can scroll up and get rid of the direction. There you go. So it's deleted. All the highlights for table 2 is gone. And you have to complete all this. I'm not showing you everything here. I'm not filling in all these numbers here. I'm just showing you one example as to how to do this table. And if you are confused as to the percentage here, there is a guide. Let me go back to cursor. There is a guide below as to how much or what is the realistic estimates. So for housing, it's around 20%. Color here. So for housing, estimates is 20%. For food, the estimate is around, realistic estimate is around 10% of the salary. Insurance is 10% for home insurance. And for life insurance, transportation is 5%. Utilities, 5%. Personal care, 15%. Entertainment, 10%. Miscellaneous is 5%, and savings is 20%. Now, if you add this up, it adds up to 100%. So you can either use these percentages for your own project, or you can do a more realistic estimate that works for you. If you already have your real budget for housing, for food, for insurance, you can do that. And if you choose to just use these percentages, you can also do that. It's your budget, so you know how much you're spending. So it's all up to you, just as long as the math is correct. Let me go back to my cursor. Just as long as all the numbers here adds up. So when I add all the percentages here, it has to add up to 100%. And when I recalculate all your work here, it has to be correct. So you do this first. Let me change color here so you'd see. So you have to do this first. It's easier that way. But if you have another process, if you have another steps on how you budget this, it's all up to you. It's your budget, just as long as the math adds up later when we do the checking. Okay? So this is part 1b, table of the monthly expenses.